45 years ago today, the Coast Guard cutter Blackthorn collided with the tanker Calypso in Tampa Bay, and 23 Coast Guardsmen lost their lives that night. Welcome to Boat Training Online. I'm Shawn Pollard. I want to do this video to honor the loss of those 23 sailors, and I want to pay some respect. I'm not going to go over what ship did what, all the nuts and bolts of the tragedy, but I do want to share with you a little piece of this tragedy from my perspective and how it impacted me. January 28th, 1980, I was stationed in the Presidential Honor Guard in Washington, D.C., under then President Jimmy Carter. The Coast Guard Ceremonial Honor Guard participated in all the joint services ceremonies that happened at the White House, the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, the Pentagon, Andrews Air Force Base. We also participated in joint services funerals, color guard, where if there was a dignitary that came into town that wanted to render some kind of an honor, we participated. But the one thing that we didn't do was bury our own. The Navy did it. The U.S. Navy buried our active duty, our veterans, our retirees, anybody from the Coast Guard. The Navy took care of it. And we didn't think it was right. And quite frankly, I don't think the Navy thought it was right either. But when we queried our command about us doing it, they always said that we weren't staffed to do that much work. Well, we didn't feel that way. And we kept on them. And, you know, the old saying, be careful what you wish for, you may get it. So our command made arrangements with the Navy, and they trained us. And this was a pretty big endeavor, because we had to be taught how to carry a casket in a military manner, how to get the casket out of the hearse, how to pinwheel, how to carry the casket up and down stairs, put it on a stand. There was a lot to it. Not to mention, they had to teach us how to fold the flag, again in a military manner, and do it right. A properly folded flag will have 4 stars going right across the top. It's a triangle, and it needs to have 4 stars. And there's something to it. So anyway, they also worked with our firing party. We have 7 men and women that were on the firing party, and it's supposed to sound like 3 different shots, not 21 people doing whatever they want. They also worked with our bugler and showed him where to position himself and play taps. They also worked with our color guard and riflemen on where to post up. So anyway, we did this for several months, and finally we got to the point where we thought, and the Navy thought, that we were qualified to do our own funerals. And we did. We buried several retirees, several former veterans, and so on, but we never buried anybody that was on active duty until January 28th. And the first job to come in was a kid from Culpeper, Virginia. Now, Culpeper is about an hour and a half away from our base in Alexandria, so it was well within driving range of doing this job. Our command rented a big charter bus, and we all headed down that way. And usually the bus, it was a lot of fun. It was, you know, we had a guy named Harley who I'm amazed he never ended up on TV as a comedian. He was hilarious, and he'd always pick out somebody that, you know, he'd poke a little fun at. But it was always a lot of fun. But this trip, it was different. Charles Hall was 22 years old. He was the same age as all of us. And but for the grace of God, you know what I mean? And it was quiet. Then we get to the edge of town, and we're driving down Charles Hall's Main Street. And I thought about my Main Street, how many times before I joined the Coast Guard I'd gone up and down it. And if memory serves me right, we went right down the Main Street, took a left up into the National Cemetery, and the bus driver wound his way around, and we finally find gravesite. And the director told us, you know, the layout and what was going to happen. And so we all bloused up, got our gear, and everybody posted. You know, the body bearers, I was one of the body bearers, and you know, the firing party and the bugler, and everybody went to where their assigned spot. And pretty soon the hearse comes, and the limousine with the family, and then everybody filed in behind. And the director let everybody get out of their cars and get to the gravesite, and then he gave us a head nod, and we went over, pulled Charles out of the hearse, and in a military manner, we got him to his final resting spot. We popped the flag, and the way that we did it, the Navy way, was that we'd stretch the flag out where it looked like a piece of plywood. And we were spot on. We had trained for a long time, and we looked really good. But man, so anyway, we get on our spots, and then you have to lock yourself in. You're at attention now. And we want this to be as respectful and full of honor as we can do. And when I raise my head, I'm staring right at Charles Hall's sister. Now I'm assuming this is Charles's sister. The age was right. She was my age. She wasn't crying uncontrollably. She just had tears running down her face. And it broke my heart. I remember when the 21 gun salute went off, she jumped. And when the bugler played taps, anyway, we folded the flag. It was presented to his mother, and we all got back on the bus. I don't think a word was said on the way home. I think it had a real big impact on everybody. We buried a couple more people off the Blackthorn, but it wasn't like Charles Hall. I left the Honor Guard in 1981, October of 1981. I'd gotten married. We inaugurated Ronald Reagan. The Iranian hostages were released. It seemed like there was always something going on in that town, and I think there still is something going on in that town all the time. And I went off to my first real Coast Guard station, and I did a career in the Coast Guard. And I thought about Charles from time to time. I did a couple small boat stations a patrol boat, a tugboat. But my last ship was the Coast Guard cutter Bittersweet, which is the sister ship to the Coast Guard cutter Blackthorn. And I thought about Charles a lot while I was on there. I'd seen what tragedy does to a family, and I was hard on those guys, man. I didn't want to see any of my crewmen's families go through the stuff that I saw Charles's family go through. It's funny, 40-some years later, 46 years later, 45 years later, I'm still in contact with a bunch of those guys that I was in the Honor Guard with, and we do a Zoom call every once in a while. And Charles was brought up in our last conversation, and it wasn't me. So I know that Charles had a big impact on all of us. My best man lives down in Texas. He's a writer. He's a college professor. He got his GED in the Honor Guard. Now he's a professor. I love the guy to death. But I talked to him the other night, told him I wanted to do this video. And he asked me, you know, in regards to your station, your channel, what are you hoping to prove? And I'm like, I'm not proving anything. I'm just, I do some sea stories every here now and then, and I think I want everybody to know that there's consequence for your actions or your inactions, and it can have a profound effect. So I want this just to be about honor and respect. There's no lesson in it for you today. I got plenty of those coming for you. I don't know where old sailors end up, but I do hope that wherever it is, that I get to sit down and have a coffee with Charles Hall. If they serve beer there, maybe we'll have a beer together. But I'd like that. I'd really like that. All right. I've talked enough here. I'll catch you guys on the next video. Thank you.